If you're somewhere in your late 50s or 60s and starting to feel a quiet shift in how you make decisions, this is what we're talking about today. This episode is about recognizing how your relationship with time changes as you move closer to retirement and how that shift can actually help you make clearer, more grounded choices instead of continuing to carry things that no longer make sense. Hello, I'm Sarah Jane, and this is The Retirement Project. This is where I'm working through what it means to leave a long career, recalibrate how I live, and build something that reflects the reality of this stage of life rather than the expectations I've been carrying for decades. Come along on the journey and prepare for your next transition too. Over the last few months, I've started to notice something that is subtle, but once you see it, it is hard to unsee. Time has started to feel more defined. There's a sense that it has edges now, and that certain decisions are no longer abstract or theoretical in the way they used to be. I think this is part of being 60, maybe. Things that I could once leave open-ended are starting to ask for a response, and I find myself meeting that request more directly than I would have even a few years ago. I felt it recently with a few health-related things I've been meaning to take care of. I'm sure I'm not alone. Appointments I could have postponed before, but now that feel very connected to a very real window of time. Things I once could leave open-ended are starting to ask for a response, and I find myself meeting that request more directly than I would have even a few years ago. The clock is ticking. A very practical example of this is that I've been getting what I jokingly call my teeth retirement ready. I looked ahead at what I may need over the next few years, worked backward from that point, and scheduled a series of appointments while I still have excellent health insurance. None of this is particularly enjoyable, and under different circumstances, I probably would have delayed at least part of it. But what stood out to me this time was how straightforward the process felt. I wasn't circling around the decision or trying to talk myself into it, though it's been easy for me to talk myself out of it. Now I could see what needed to be done. I could see the window of time in which it made sense, and I simply moved forward. I don't look forward to any of my upcoming appointments, but I do have a new sense of pride around getting this work done, making it a priority, seeing it clearly for what it is. That clarity felt different enough that I paid attention to it. It is so important that I take care of these teeth. They're the only ones I have. For a long time, I operated with the assumption that time would remain relatively flexible, even when life was full or demanding. There was always a sense that things could be addressed later, that there would be another opportunity to take care of something that wasn't urgent in the moment. And as someone with ADHD, this concept of later is a hard one to overcome. But at this stage in my life, it takes on more meaning. That assumption starts to shift in this stage of life as we prepare for large life transitions like retiring, downsizing, or moving closer to family, or maybe somewhere far away. Time begins to feel more specific, and with that specificity comes a different kind of awareness. You begin to see where you've been carrying things forward out of habit rather than intention, and where you've been relying on a version of yourself in the future who would somehow have more capacity, more energy, or more willingness to deal with what you're setting aside now. And that is one of the many great lies we tell ourselves. When you really look closely, it becomes clear that your future self is not going to be any less human than you are right now. In many ways, she is going to be working with fewer resources, not more, and that changes how certain decisions land. As I look at my runway to retirement, I am planning with that benchmark date as the target. What changes is the quality of your attention. You begin to notice the places in your life that require maintenance, the areas where you have been accommodating something that no longer fits, and the quiet agreements you've made with yourself to come back to something later that you already know needs to be addressed now. There is a kind of honesty that starts to emerge here, and it has a stabilizing effect. Decisions become less about motivation and more about alignment with the life you are actually living and the one you are preparing to step into. This is where this becomes useful in a very practical sense. When you understand that your relationship with time has shifted, you can begin to make decisions that reduce unnecessary strain instead of extending it. You can take care of things while you still have access to the resources, energy, and support that make those decisions easier. And you can stop relying on a future version of yourself to carry out what you are able to handle now. Do I need 6 different work bags now that I am beginning the process of moving away from my high-powered career as an instructional leader? No, I do not. So I sorted through them, and I have one I am keeping to get me through the next year of my career, and the rest are going now. Because now opens up more time for joy later. Kendra Adichie talks in her book, The Lazy Genius, I don't know if you've read that one, about present Kendra doing things for future Kendra. It is banking future joy when we take care of something now, and knowing there is less time in the future makes the need to make that time as joyful as possible, the new normal. This doesn't mean you need some dramatic overhaul. You just need to pay attention to your timeline, whatever that might be. If you want to work with this in your own life, I would suggest starting in a really simple way. Pay attention to where you are still assuming that something can be handled later, especially if it's something you've already been aware of for a while. Colonoscopy, anyone? That dental appointment? Sorting through that hall closet to free up space? Writing down your recipe for the family's favorite cookies? Taking that trip that you have wanted to take. I'm going to Paris in 2 weeks because of that. Checking your investments and savings in order to practically take stock. Choose one of the things that come to mind for you and take a closer look at it. Consider what it would take to address it now, given your current circumstances, and then take a step in that direction. You don't need to solve everything at once. What matters is that you begin to respond to what you already know instead of continuing to defer it. If this is something you're navigating as well, I would be genuinely interested in hearing how it's showing up for you. This project for me is less about arriving at a fixed plan and more about paying attention to these shifts as they happen and allowing them to inform the way I move forward. The question I'm holding right now is a simple one, but it has a lot of weight behind it. Where am I still assuming I have more time than I actually do? You might sit with that one for a bit and see what comes up. I looked ahead, worked backward, and scheduled a series of dental appointments while I still have excellent health insurance. None of it is fun. All of it is sensible. What struck me wasn't the dental work. It was how little resistance I felt to planning it. Time doesn't disappear. It just becomes specific. Once time stops being neutral, it starts shaping decisions, whether we acknowledge it or not. The retirement project doesn't offer answers so much as better questions. I will see you in the next video. Please consider subscribing and/or hitting the like button. It makes a difference for me. See you soon.